It's alive! It's alive!
The snozberries taste like snozberry.
Welcome to Film Logic. We are a podcast that celebrates the movies of past, present, and future with all the fandoms in between. And we're also part of the Retro Logic Network, which is full of geeks and nerds and a few dorks. And we're just a bunch of great guys and gals just celebrating our nerddom and retro games and music. And check our link for the Discord. I am with Adam, and only Adam today. Adam, hi.
Hi, I'm only Adam.
You are only Adam. Never shall you be anything else.
Always have been, always will be.
And fun fact, I'm Mike, in case I didn't give my name. So we're both Mike and Adam, and we're here to talk about films. And nothing is more film-like than what we're about to talk about. I won't spoil it yet.
I mean, it's probably right in the title. It's fine.
Yeah, it'll be right on the title and the description. But you know, between us, we can suspend our belief.
Yeah, no, I'm great at that.
Yes. So how's it going, Adam? It's been a while.
It's been a hot minute, summer schedules, getting ready to see some awesome blockbusters that are coming out soon. Everyone's keeping it real. And, I know that you mentioned last time that you and your family had a nice little vacay up north, but you decided to bring some of that great north back with you in form of a great miasma outside. For those of you not in the Northeast, covered in burning fire smoke, that's kind of just been our daily reality. I woke up this morning to go outside and I thought I was in Silent Hill.
Oh yeah, right. I know. Canada they do their annual ketchup chip roasting, and it got out of hand, and
Yeah,
now
they got too excited.
The Northeast is covered in Silent Hill fog.
Yeah, but it smells delicious, just like ketchup.
Yep, it definitely does. Don't Google any of this news. Just trust us. That's what happened.
Yeah, exactly. Get your news here.
Yes. Wow.
Retro news.
News that happened in the past. Some might call that history.
But not here. Not here.
Nope. We talk about the past as if it's happening today. How's that Abraham Lincoln doing?
He's a great president.
He's low in the polls.
Yeah, he's tall, but he could be taller. Maybe a hat. A hat would look great on him.
Absolutely. Hot takes.
Hot takes here. Oh man. Let's get to what we're actually talking about, Mike.
Well, I feel like I'm abandoning the ancient podcast technique of stalling for time. But I guess we should get talking to television stuff. Today, we are doing a momentous thing. We are covering a little piece called The Mandolin, starring Nicolas Cage, Penelope Cruz, and John Hurt, directed by John Madden. Wait, look at my notes. Oh, wait, That was a typo. The Mandalorian, Season 3.
That was truly bad.
That was my one-off joke. I told you only one person's going to get it, and it's going to be us.
Only one.
And now I really want to see this Captain Corelli's Mandolin, directed by John Madden, who I'm hoping is the NFL John Madden.
The only reason I know that reference is, who isn't an expert on all things Nicolas Cage? And and hopefully maybe we'll this won't be the last time we talk about Nick Cage tonight. At least it won't be for me, but we're gonna talk about The Mandalorian.
We're going into the hot series. We're bowing down to the hashtag, the trend.
The trend.
And
And
we're gonna talk about an episodic feature instead of a cinematic feature.
right. But this is definitely one of those shows that kind of blurs the line, right? Like
Hmm.
just the amount of budget that's blown on CGI and real effects and actors and you name it. This is, if anything is a movie, it's this.
Yes. It's one part Star Wars, two parts spaghetti western,
Mm.
or they don't have spaghetti in Star Wars, so I guess it would be tauntaun guts, kind of like
Sounds good.
spaghetti.
Yeah, right? Close enough.
Close enough. So we're going to talk about Mandalorian season 3 in our second half, but our first half,
Ooh.
I want to know what you're watching.
Oh man,
And it
Mike. I
better be
mean,
animated.
yeah, right. I mean, really, I don't know if you've seen it yet, Mike, but man, that new Spider-Verse movie, hot diggity dog.
Hmm.
That thing is a cinematic masterpiece, truly something to behold. Um, yeah, it's the first kind of comic book movie that I've sat down and was like, oh, this is a comic book. I'm watching a comic book happen,
Hmm.
and down to one of the opening scenes in the intro, they literally play they show the comic code, right, right on
Yeah.
the front of it. And I mean, just as the reviews and the people talking about it have come out in recent times, I just get more and more amazed about just the amount of effort that went into the creation of this movie. I saw somewhere that Spider-Punk took them 2 years to figure out how to animate him the way that he's animated. And just the inspiration for all the Spider Men and women and
Right.
creatures. Yeah, this movie. I mean, for the spectacle of its cinematography alone and animation alone is just brilliant.
That's a lot of people have I don't know if this is a popular opinion, but
Hmm,
they say that live action is harder to do
sure.
than animated, and I just don't believe that.
Yeah.
I
Wait. No.
I think what these geniuses are doing on computers, and
Mm,
with all the rotoscoping. I mean, yeah, it's less of actors and actresses doing stuff, but the scientists are busting a hump
for
trying to
sure.
make these beautiful masterpieces.
For sure. And what's even more amazing is each of the spider people and creatures in the show, the way that they're animated is very, faithful to how they're drawn in their respective comics.
Hmm.
And I mean, all of Spider Gwen's scenes in her universe are this beautiful, like washed out watercolor, and I just I can't speak highly enough of this movie. I mean, so far, at least to me, it's the best the Spider-Verse. It's the best of the Spider-Verse movies so far. To me, it might even be the best Spider-Man movie. It is the best Spider-Man movie.
Wow.
And it's the best Marvel movie, it's the best superhero movie, and it maybe the best animated movie of all time. I don't know. That remains to be seen. But I loved every second of it. It was truly amazing.
Yeah, a friend once told me that these comic books, they were made for cartoons because cartoons are bigger than life.
Mm,
So you lose something in the translation when it becomes live action. And when he said that, it kind of clicked. It's like,
right,
yeah, you can never be faithful to a comic book with live action as much as you can with animated.
right.
You might argue with me on that, but there's just so many larger than life things that you can
Yeah.
do in a cartoon that gets lost in translation when you try to do it behind a green screen.
No,
And
I totally agree.
yeah. And honestly, if your movie's going to be 99.9% green screen, you might as well just go animated.
Right? That's what
I
I'm
know.
saying.
I mean, you lose Paul Rudd in one of those mocap suits, but that's about it. I'm sure he'd be happy he wouldn't have to be in one.
Right, right.
Mhm.
No, I totally agree. And I mean, I think the only thing, and I think the only thing that I would disagree with you in,
Mhm.
and I think this, even though I'm disagreeing with you, I think it actually bolsters your point. But like
Yes.
all the best live action superhero movies have been all the ones that are quote unquote the most realistic. So like Winter Soldier, the Batman, Nolan's Batman trilogy, the Batman, the ones that are a little bit more grounded in reality, where there's not,
Right.
purple space aliens flying around. Those are the best superhero movies.
Yeah.
Because it's there's not a ridiculous green guy in a flying wingsuit with a motorcycle helmet attacking little old ladies as they're
Hmm.
reciting the Lord's Prayer.
Right. Right. And was I crazy to cringe when Spider-Man first showed the Green Power Ranger villain? And I was probably 20 something, and I'm
Right,
like, I'm supposed to take this seriously. I'm
right,
supposed to feel threatened by this bad guy and root for the hero.
right,
But a part of me is wondering when the big bad Beetleborgs are going to show up and beat this guy up.
right. Exactly. 100% agree. 100%
Hmm.
agree. And then I think the only other maybe exception to the rule is when it's so ridiculous that it doesn't you can suspend your belief regardless. So like looking at you Deadpool movies, looking at you
Hmm.
Guardians of the Galaxy, where the spectacle overrides your rationale. But yeah, for the most part, I think animated is the way to go. I mean, DC has been proving that for years with
Right?
their animated stuff. All their stuff is, head and shoulders above anything else that they got going on. And
Yeah. Most people don't know about the DCAU, which is loosely connected. Like
mm,
they're trying to keep the same actors. They're trying to make at one point they were trying to connect the animated universe, maybe as like a backup just in case this live stuff failed. But I don't know if they're doing it anymore, but there is like one, two, maybe three that are all connected,
right, right,
which isn't really a universe, that's really just a trilogy, but
right.
mhm.
That's neither here nor there.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. If you guys are listening, you haven't gone to see the Spider-Man across the Spider or into the Spider-Verse. Yeah, do yourself a favor, go see this movie. It's a masterpiece.
Hmm. And maybe I spoke too highly of animated because I wouldn't want a superhero movie that looks like just something DreamWorks just belched out. Uh,
Mm,
the visuals and the art direction have to be there too. I mean, I
right,
guess that's true with any comic books as well. You don't want
right,
something that looks generic.
right.
So I guess
Yeah,
it's all about the looks.
for sure, for sure. Yeah, and my buddy that I saw it with, he probably had the best just one line review for the movie, and we were walking out, and he goes, "You could have paused that movie at any point, and that could have been an incredible screensaver." Or and I was like, "You're right. You're absolutely right."
Hmm. And just think, this is a Spider-Man movie based on um, a side project of the Spider-Man universe,
Right.
who was part of a dying universe called the Ultimates universe. Uh, Everything about this felt like Disney's leftovers, and it was made by guys that really only had like Lego movies under their belt.
Right.
So
Right.
everything looked like it could fail, but it works.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Truly, everything about this fantastic. Yeah. So I mean, that's what I've been watching. What about you, Mike? What have you been watching?
Well, speaking of things that are as realistic as a cartoon and part of a greater universe, I saw Fast X or Fast 10 or Fast 10 Your Seatbelt, or I don't know what it's called. But let me tell you, the
Mm.
review that says we will never have as much fun watching this movie as Jason Momoa had acting in it is the truest statement. So Oh gosh, where to even begin? My best explanation is that someone from another country saw like Heath Ledger's Batman, and like Infinity War. They tried to tell someone else who didn't speak their language about what they saw, and that person tried to explain that to Michael Bay. And that's how Fast X came, because it's like Infinity War but with cars. It's Transformers without robots, and it is just it is a fruit salad of just beating up guys that are in SWAT gear. There's tons of that in the movie. Playing soccer with a giant bomb near the Vatican. There was a lot of that in the movie, and just Jason Momoa doing his best Heath Ledger impersonation. And I think one of my favorite reviews is, well, okay, I have two favorite reviews, but
Yeah.
one person said Jason Momoa can be Joaquin Phoenix, but Joaquin Phoenix cannot do a Fast and Furious movie, which is so true. Like I could see Jason Momoa as a Joker because he is just off the wall bananas in that movie. Putting pigtails in his hair, doing cartwheels, saying "OMG, my dudes," like just weird stuff like that. And he is the most entertaining person to watch.
Wow. And that's saying something in a cast with Jonathan Cena.
Oh,
being
John Cena is a close second. He
Yeah,
plays
that's what I hear.
he plays like this kind of hokey pokey dad who isn't afraid to like snap someone's neck. So he'll be like,
No,
"Oh,
no,
come
no.
on."
What's his character in the movie?
Same. Yeah, like he plays just like he kind of plays your dad, like jokey, fun. Hey, you two back there, stop swearing. But
Right.
hold on, let me just flip this guy through a table. All right, back to there, and it's just man,
Yeah.
like I feel like how our complaint is that Doctor Strange had too many voices, too many rewrites, too much intervention.
Right.
This movie had the opposite. It was first draft. I don't want you to edit it. Okay, we're going to take the first take. There doesn't need to be a second take. And we're just going to scrounge around for CGI assets that haven't been used in a while. And that was the whole gist of the movie.
Yeah, no, I heard that before every scene they shot, everybody, including the crew, just took shots of laughing gas and just went for it.
Oh my gosh. It is so true. And I mean, I guess you need all that stuff because like Vin Diesel, I didn't think he could be less emotive than in, Guardians of the Galaxy. Like he brings his character down a notch in emotions for this movie. He's like, how can I be more wooden than Groot?
Is that possible?
He figures it out. He's like, I can feel less.
Hmm.
Family is everything. I trust in you, buddy. Just
the most weird takes.
Yeah, he gets upset because Jason Momoa chewed up the scenery, destroyed him. But when you're that wooden, I can't blame you.
Right.
Because when Jason Momoa is painting a dead guy's toenails and
Right.
pretending to do voices of the dead cop, you have no choice.
Right. You have no choice but to root for that guy.
Yeah. The saddest part is that Fast X is, and they didn't tell anyone in the audience this. There's no mention of this. It's part of a trilogy.
Yeah.
So there's gonna be two more. It ends on a cliffhanger. And the saddest part is that Jason Momoa might lose.
Man, that's absolutely insane to me. And I mean, there's my buddy who went to go see it, he told me all about it. He's a huge fan of the whole series,
Right.
and I just couldn't justify spending money on it. Like I don't
Hmm.
know. Maybe I'll see it at some point, but to me it's the perfect shining Tower of Babylon or Tower of Babel of
Yeah.
everything that's wrong with cinema and like
Hmm.
Hollywood. But for whatever reason, these movies just print money, and I for the life of me, I cannot understand it. And I think I said it somewhere in a chat or somewhere on Discord, but it's such a shame to me that there are a bajillion of these movies. And like you said, this movie hasn't completed its trilogy yet, but they're already saying that they're gonna do spin-off movies of this
Hmm.
movie with different characters. But like we can't get another Blade Runner 2049.
I think there's like they might have tapped into the algorithm of like this is so trash you have to love it algorithm, because that is like everybody's review. Everybody on Letterbox says I know this is trash. I know what I'm looking at is wrong and so poor on so many levels, and that is why I love it. And so it's like it's it would be like a professional gymnast, but
Mm.
instead of like getting on the high beam, she totally misses it and explodes
It's like a
all
literal
over the
car crash.
audience and ends up winning the gold.
Right. It's like a literal car crash. You can't keep your eyes off of it.
Right.
Um, and I mean, honestly, our audience might know this by now, but me and Mike are big wrestling fans, and it's probably the same thing, right? Like we
Mm-hmm.
understand, that this isn't real, that you know,
Mm-hmm.
this is the lowest form of art, but there's just something about Evan Bourne doing a 540 frog splash off the top rope, and you're like,
Right.
yes, I'm here for this,
Right.
and you just can't turn your eyes away.
And for those of you who are thinking, man, I wish John Cena would do the signature moves he's known for in WWE, watch Fast X. You will not be disappointed.
No! Does he do a five knuckles shuffle?
I'm I'm sure it's in there. I just missed it, but he does the attitude adjustment.
Oh yeah. PG. That's so
So
great.
and I just realized that I spent more time talking about Fast X
Mm.
than you did about Spider-Man. So what kind of world do we live in, Adam?
I mean, it's a valid question, and I love that we put these two movies together because I don't know if you saw the clip that was making the rounds on the internet, but Michelle Rodriguez, who plays Letty in the Fast movies, it was interviewed on the red carpet, and she was saying, "Oh, we don't need another Marvel movie. They're washed up. They're unoriginal. There's too many of them." And there was backlash against her being like, "Okay, you're saying all these things, but you're in the Fast and the Furious franchise. The literal definition of excess." But I
Yeah.
mean, Mike, what do you think about her? What do you think about her comments? What do you think about what she said in comparison to Marvel? Do you think they're the same
Well,
thing?
that is one kettle that should not be calling a pot black. I
Right, for sure.
mean, they have a Netflix show for kids called Fast and Furious Super Spies. So they are definitely chasing the dollar just as aggressively as Marvel. Um,
Right.
yeah. So
And I mean, I saw an interview with what's his name, Ludacris, and they the question was along the lines of like, what do you have to say to people, or like, why do you think these movies, like, do you think these movies deserve to keep being made? Why do you like along those lines? And Ludacris was like, because they make money, and that's why they exist, and that's why there's so many. Like they make
yes,
money, and yeah, I mean, do we make the Marvel fan people upset at us if we say the same thing that Marvel's in it for the cash? I don't know. What do you think?
I absolutely think that either praise or money is going to get you to make sequels. Um, it's the Harry Potter effect.
Mm,
People love what I do, so I'm never gonna stop. When I
right,
read positive comments, based on the book that I self-published, it's like, oh, maybe I should be writing more.
right,
Everyone's gonna chase after what looks like success. No one's on their knees praying like, Lord, give me a sign that we need a new Fast and Furious.
right.
One that will truly serve humanity, as we prayed for the last nine, and you have delivered. No one, no one's saying that. They're all just saying, people will scream yay if we make this.
Right.
I mean, I have to hand it to Regal. I wanted to. I saw this movie with my 18-year-old son, and I wanted to show him, like, we are men of integrity. We're not going to sneak food in there. And then I go up to the candy thing, and I wanted to keep it simple. And so he buys the small soda for $6, and I'm like, haha, I'll pick a water. And the water was $5. And then
Right.
he bought this little thing of M&Ms, and that was $5. And then I'm like, next time we are sneaking food so hard into this theater. Because that is straight up highwayman robbery.
Yeah, and I mean, maybe that's a conversation for a different time, but it's so funny to me that like movie theaters, like their loss leader, like at a normal restaurant, like a
Mm-hmm.
place is like a loss leader is where they're putting up things that are they lose money on. So the food at whatever, but then there are things that they secretly mark up that they make so much money. And most restaurants make most of their money on drinks, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
that's the big markup. And it's so funny to me that at a movie theater, the movie is the loss leader. Like they like movie theaters don't make money from showing movies. They just don't.
Right.
And they make money from the concessions, which blows my mind.
Right. Right. And there's something backwards about that.
Right.
A normal person would say we need to change the industry. Leaving your house to see movies on a big screen isn't working anymore. And they're like, no, we'll just make $8 for a cup of water.
Ain't that the truth?
Yeah.
Ain't that the truth? But yeah, no, I mean, I'm bought in. I'm addicted. I can't not go to the movie theater. So I'm all in. Uh,
It's it's
mm,
special.
it's special.
Not to spread
Mm,
out our episode, but do you ever? I feel this now more than ever. With all
mm,
the hype behind movies, you're sitting in the theater, and the movie's like 5 minutes in,
right.
and you get like this nervous feeling. Do I like this? Do I not like this? Am
Right.
I trapped here?
I mean, sometimes it depends on what the movie is, but yeah, for sure. I've been there.
I get that around hyped movies, like the new
Okay.
Spider-Man. I'm like, oh, I'm supposed to like this. Come on, enjoy.
There's so much pressure for you to
Yeah,
like
I
it.
have to like this, otherwise I'm gonna be the guy who's missing out.
Mike, the existential crisis that you have whenever you go see something that people like, I can't even fathom. I feel so bad for you, buddy.
You should. That's why, like, I really don't want to know what's out there. I just want to stumble upon things, and then I'll have like the best like review of them.
Guys, I just discovered this incredible movie. It's called Endgame. Have you heard about it?
Exactly. Like, oh, I think it's based on a Philip K. Dick sci-fi book. You know?
Incredible,
Yeah.
incredible. And I mean, I one last point, and then we can move on. But why do you think movies like Fast X are making hundreds of millions of dollars, and we get movies then that release, like later this summer, like we're gonna get Oppenheimer, and we're gonna get Barbie, and pretty soon we're gonna get Wes Anderson's new movie Asteroid City. um, and these movies won't even come into the same atmosphere in terms of money made as Fast X. Why do you think that is?
There's a whole like college course probably on this.
Probably.
There's, I don't know, something about low hanging fruit
Yeah.
and like the laziness of rediscovery. Like, why should your brain have to get sucked into like some new universe created from scratch when it can go to something comfortable like Vin Diesel and his friends racing around?
Right. His tank
It
top.
probably has a lot to do with that.
Yeah, for sure. Like it's it's the comfort TV show effect, right? Like,
Yeah. Like,
why risk watching Bones when you know that you like Friends and you can just watch it over and over and over again?
right. And the movie that won the Oscar, like, it's
Everything
not
everywhere.
making money like the Marvel universe
Sure.
because people are like, oh man, I have to understand this movie, I have to get sucked into its universe, I have to
Right.
suspend my disbelief, and I have to be on the up and up about characters. My brain has to do all this acrobatics to get into this movie when I have something that's episodic, like a universe where I already know half the stuff and I can just slide right in and just pick up where I left off.
Right. Right. And you kind of take it at your own pace. Yeah, no, I totally agree. No, I think it's interesting, so I guess really what it comes down to is, what is the measure of success for you and for a movie, right? Like, is a movie that makes hundreds of millions of dollars, but is morally bankrupt, like Fast X, or is that a good movie because it made a lot of money, or is Everything Everywhere All at Once a superior movie and it won an Oscar because it's artsy, or Moonlight or La La Land? Like,
Mm-hmm.
are these movies is who's to say that La La Land is a better or worse movie than Fast X? And I guess
Right,
that's why it's so individual. And
right. We made a whole career out of people judging movies, and
right.
yet, who's to like? Why should we trust? Why should we trust Leonard Maltin, or
What a
over?
deep cut.
Yeah, why should we trust him
Right.
over this other guy? Over your
Right.
best friend.
Right. 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 And I mean, we all had friends growing up that like saw the movie before everybody else, right? Because they had,
Mm-hmm.
rich parents or parents that would let them watch PG-13 movies, even though we're all like 11.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and like they would always tell you about the movie, but then when you went to go see it, you're like, they didn't what? What are you? What are they talking about?
Mm-hmm.
That wasn't even close to I don't know what they were saying, but yeah, I mean, I guess that's what makes movies so subjective, right?
Right. Yeah.
And
And
why we can't judge Michelle Rodriguez too harshly.
mm-hmm. Like in her world, a yearly offering of people in cars, like playing soccer ball with giant bombs, is normal.
Right.
But like people in spandex are not normal.
Not normal,
Yeah.
right? And I don't know. And I know that some people will accuse us of being in this camp, but it definitely felt like a flip got switched in the last 5 years or so, that it suddenly became really cool and trendy to like just hate on Marvel for whatever reason. And it's
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, it's and I mean, trust me, I've been there. I mean, for every Into the Spider-Verse or Infinity War, there's an Ant-Man in Quantum Mania, whatever. So I mean, it definitely has its valid critiques, but yeah, I don't
Mm-hmm.
know. At some point, it just became cool to make fun of Marvel, even when your franchise is as morally bankrupt.
Yeah. I think it's the idea of it being so prevalent.
Mm,
As a kid, you couldn't have like soda whenever you wanted it. So when
right,
soda came out, it was like amazing.
right,
Well, it was a game changer. It made your whole day. But now you can
right,
have soda everywhere. It's so easy to get. You probably
Right.
have like 6 different liters to open in your pantry. And
Right.
now it's like, this soda really needs to be special if it's gonna even move my happiness meter even an inch. Otherwise, it's just wasting my time.
Right. Exactly.
Hmm.
And I was having a discussion because they recently there have been some rumors about who's going to be directing, the next Avengers movie, and I think Sam Raimi's name has been a front runner for that. And in a discussion with people, I was like, guys, I know that I'm supposed to like the original Spider-Man trilogy, and I know that I'm supposed to like, Multiverse of Madness, but I'm not the biggest fan of Sam Raimi as like a Spider-Man director or as a superhero director. I just feel like he doesn't get it, and like don't get me wrong, Evil Dead, he does art house horror better than almost anybody, but
Hmm.
I don't know, it just felt kind of cheesy when he was doing corny when he was doing Spider-Man, um
Hmm.
and yeah, no, I guess that's all to say, you know, um some back then Spider-Man was like, do we are we guilty of looking back and seeing Spider-Man at that time and us thinking, "Oh yeah, this was really good," because that's all we had? And
Hmm.
are we tricking ourselves into thinking that like, "Oh yeah, X-Men or X1, X2 and X3 were good movies,"
Right.
or but because that's all we had. And like I would say that like even a bad, even Thor Love and Thunder now is better than, I don't know, Spider-Man 3.
Yeah. Yeah. I have a few varying opinions.
Mm,
Sometimes on the directors, they don't understand the less is more.
right.
So when a movie it tries to show less, but like it's more meaningful, I'll take that over like a huge like fruit salad buffet,
Right.
which a lot of Marvel movies are. Like we judge a good movie in the Marvel universe by how much crap can get loaded into it. Like there's 18 jokes followed by 18 sad scenes by 20 Easter eggs,
Right, right.
and it's just like, oh, that was good because there was a quantity, it was in bulk.
Right.
Hmm.
Right. No, totally agree.
Hmm.
So Mike, it seems we're at a crossroads now. Shall we go into our shall we talk about maybe our favorite trilogies really quickly and then get into the Mandalorian, or I don't know, what are you feeling?
Trilogies would be amazing to talk
Yes.
about because there's not that many,
Mm.
so we have to be careful in the ones we choose.
Right, right. And I guess before we get into this, how serious are you defining your trilogies, right? So like Star Wars is known for being a movie series of trilogies, right? It's literally made
Hmm.
up of 3 individual trilogies and, a couple of spin-offs here and there. Um so I mean, would you say that Lord of the Rings, like, is that a trilogy, right? Like the Fellowship, Two Towers, and Return of the King. But because they
Hmm.
have the Hobbit stuff, is that still a trilogy, or what is your definitive?
Well,
What is your
that's the thing is no one
mm,
wants trilogies anymore. They always want to add stuff.
right,
So, I mean, I could say the Matrix trilogy, but then they added a Matrix. So, do we mean the old Matrix without including the new Matrix?
or the
Or,
Animatrix?
yeah, or do we just like, do we include the fourth one?
Right, right, exactly. Where does it end? Like, for sure. And I mean, and at least for me, my working definition is, you know, uh, a movie, a trilogy is movies that were made with a defined story and characters that are told over the course of 3 movies.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, obviously, but then I think, but with the idea that of it just being those 3 movies. So like, at some point we're gonna get some other Back to the Future stuff, But
Yeah.
like the Back to the Future trilogy was written and thought of and conceived of as like a trilogy. So I mean, at least for me, my favorite trilogy of all time that I could watch all day, daily, nightly, is the Indiana Jones trilogy, right? The original three. I know that there's a fourth and a fifth that have come out, but those three movies were conceived as those three of those
Hmm.
things were added and tacked on. And there's just something magical that happens on film when you combine John Williams and Steven Spielberg and your good old Indy and Indiana Jones, Harrison Ford. And yeah, it just kind of hits everything that I love. I love now and as a kid, like I am and was obsessed with history, so I loved the idea of the archaeology and the discovery, and I was like, oh yeah, like I know about the pyramids, or oh I remember whatever it is, like it just sparked the curiosity in me and the desire to explore. And I mean, Indiana Jones is just so cool, right? Like there's the wisecracks, the whips, the debonair tuxedos. He's running behind a giant gong and falling through a bunch of
Hmm.
overhangs. He was just so effortlessly cool, and but he was also super smart, and he made being smart cool to me. And I was like, oh wow, like I can be interested in nerdy things, but also it can be cool, and I can get the girl, and I can punch Nazis in the face. And yeah,
Hmm.
it just they just spoke to me. And yeah, I love Indiana Jones, so for me that'll always be my favorite trilogy. And I mean, of course, I
Hmm.
mean, I think there are some obvious answers like Lord of the Rings. I think I'm on the record saying those are my favorite movies. But I felt like
Hmm.
that was pretty low hanging fruit, so I went with Indiana Jones.
Yeah, those are good. Now, Adam, how do you feel about what the internet is talking about for the first Indiana Jones movie?
Mm.
The Indiana Jones didn't have to do anything. He could have just waited until the Nazis opened up the Ark, and it.
Yeah, right. And it would have been totally fine. Yeah,
Hmm.
I love that, but I don't think that it fundamentally changes the story,
Hmm.
because I solidly believe that for the in the first movie, Indiana Jones, the character is supposed to be us, right? Like we're supposed to be
Hmm.
like we're experiencing everything that Indiana Jones is experiencing. It's from his point of view. So he kind of takes the place, like he's the viewpoint for the audience. And okay, fine, like his choices and his actions didn't fundamentally change anything, but that wasn't the point of his character. His point of his character was to give us an inside look at the adventure that was happening, and just
Yeah.
being along for the ride. And I might be wrong about that, and maybe you like your characters to have a little bit more agency, but realistically, like who cares? It's fun.
Yeah. I mean, logically, there's nothing wrong because it's not like Indiana Jones knew that was going to happen.
Right.
So it would make less sense if he's like, nah, I'm gonna sit this one out,
Right,
because that
right.
would make a horrible movie. And yes, it's cool that the archaeology is sound because that is the biblical use of the ark. So green lights all around for me.
Oh, absolutely. And not to mention John Williams' score on that is just absolutely iconic. It's so
Mhm.
good.
Now, the thing I will not tolerate is when Indiana Jones gets on the sub that's about to descend,
Yeah.
and it goes underwater, it goes across half the world, and then you see the Nazi sub rise, and he just kind of like, I don't know, he's just like straightening his tie, and he's like, well, you know, that was a ride.
That was interesting.
And did he hold his breath for
Yeah,
12
probably.
hours?
Yeah, exactly. That's Harrison Ford. He can do whatever he wants.
Right. That
Or
I
is
will not tolerate in my movies.
right, or when he survives a nuclear explosion inside of a fridge.
Yep.
Yeah,
Uh,
we love that. We love that.
um, so I'm gonna go with my trilogies.
Mm.
The one that's like easy on the eyes, easy on the brain, but still smart and clever is Back to the Future.
Yeah, so
Like,
good.
even for being a time travel movie, like it's understandable science.
Mm.
The characters are not like there's not like such a huge cast of characters that like you're trying to do that whole like how Pirates of the Caribbean got so complicated
Right.
in the third one that it was like you have to like have a flow chart just to understand it.
Right.
Like Back to the Future is part of like we're just here to follow these characters into new adventures. So, for my easy watching, I would have to say Back to the Future trilogy. For my hey, I stumbled upon some cool sci-fi, I would have to go for the new Star Trek
Ooh.
movies because they took something and they made it accessible to fans to enjoy.
Mm.
Like the first, like Star Trek was never about like huge character building, but the first movie made you care about the characters, made you feel something, made them more than scientists and engineers.
Right.
And then like the second one kind of continued in that, but it also made it like it had like a smart plot that I still don't understand, but one day I'm going to get enough guts,
Right to ask.
yeah, to ask. And then the third one said, "Hey, Star Trek has never been an action like go crazy, Fast and Furious type ride. Let's see
Right.
what." And they did that, and it was actually done by the Fast and Furious director.
Oh, lo and behold.
Yeah, so I can watch those easily and just be like, yes, I'm watching something quality.
Yeah.
But all of that pales in comparison to the Batman Begins trilogy.
Oh, yeah. I
Uh,
mean,
you
yeah, it
know,
doesn't get better.
Batman Begins was the only movie where when the credits rolled, I just sat there with my jaw, dropped open because it was
Right.
just so clever and it was so realistic and it made it. I don't know. It blew my little mind. Um, and then he topped himself with Heath Ledger,
Yeah.
and then he went a little backwards with the third one. But
That's neither here nor there.
it had to end somehow. But
Right. And no, I totally agree. And I think a lot of it had to do with there was just nothing out at that point that was anything in the ballpark of that, right? Because like up until
Mhm,
that point, we got in Iron Man and we got in, various X-Men movies and
mhm,
the Batman movies that came before it were met with varying levels of camp and success.
mhm,
But Nolan's trilogy really, I mean, it kind of redefined the genre and it kind of kickstarted the whole gritty, real um, superhero thing that we're seeing the fruit of nowadays with like the boys um,
mhm.
and of course those comic books existed beforehand, but I feel like they wouldn't have gotten as much of a green light as if Nolan hadn't taken
Right.
a risk on year one and the all all those comics that he got inspired by and made those into
Mm,
movies. And yeah, where would we be without him?
yeah. There is something about like taking something so fantasy driven
Yeah.
and making it so like logical and rational and talking shop about it.
Right.
Just like just Alfred talking about how many helmets they have to order in order to keep the Batman gig under wraps,
Right.
and like testing bullets on the chest plate, and talking about the bottom line.
I'm not
Um,
wearing hockey pads.
yeah, just like when they talk like this could actually be happening.
Right.
Like there's something so cool about that.
For sure. For sure. And I mean, even when he's fighting Rachel Ghoul on a frozen lake, you're like, this could happen. I could do this.
Right. Like
Um,
less is more.
100%, 100%.
Hmm.
Um, So, Mike, we talked about some really solid actual trilogies. How do you feel about? I don't know if you've heard of the phrase, like you know, uh, like the internet kind of approved trilogies of movies that aren't actual trilogies. Um, for example, have you heard of something called the Cornetto trilogy?
No.
So you know Simon Pegg, you know Edgar Wright.
Yes.
So and you know their movies Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz,
Right.
and
Right.
The World's End. So you know people on the internet jokingly claim this is a trilogy just because they have the same actors in them, same directors,
Hmm.
and they kind of like jokingly are saying like, and because they each in each of those movies they reference the British snack cornettos that
Yeah.
these are all exist within the same universe. Um,
Right.
some other famous ones. There's one called um, based around the story of Dunkirk called the Dunkirk trilogy, where it takes place with the first movie, The Darkest Hour, which won just got 6 Oscar nominations about Winston Churchill and like the politics behind what happened at Dunkirk, and then the
Yes.
actual movie Dunkirk, and then the next movie taking place like on in Great Britain at the time of while Dunkirk was happening over in France, and that movie is called no, where is it? It's gone. Uh, what was it? Darkest
Tim
Hour?
Corelli's
Darkest.
mandolin.
Yeah. Um, no. Darkest or yeah, Darkest Hour. Um, was the first one. Dunkirk, and then the other one was why can't I find it? Um, oh my goodness. I found it. Their Finest. That's what it was. Their
Oh,
Finest, which is very good. With what's your name? From Captain America. Uh, but yeah, so those three movies, unofficially the Dunkirk trilogy, and then maybe my favorite trilogy out of all of them, the Nick Cage trilogy, where they people say that Face Off, The Rock, and Con Air are all an unofficial trilogy. Um,
yeah.
I don't know if you've heard. Have you heard about this phenomenon where people will like put three movies together and say, "Oh, this is an unofficial trilogy"?
I've heard similar theories, but you go first on your theory, and then I'll explain my theory.
Yeah, so I love the idea of the unofficial trilogy, especially if it's like semi plausible. I think maybe my favorite, and I don't think this is necessarily a trilogy, but I love the idea of James Bond being in The Rock.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, so my favorite unofficial trilogy, I guess, would be the Nick Cage one. And I mean the only connecting thread between all of them is just how, insane Nick Cage is, and he just plays these unhinged characters. That's the only real common thread.
Hmm.
But I just love the idea that, Nick Cage exists as this universal being, and these stories all happen in the same universe to the same universal being, and he's experiencing it subsequently.
He's the Marvel Watcher.
Exactly, exactly.
So here's something crazy that I heard, and that is that so Neo, when he's getting
Hmm.
hooked up and they're downloading all these programs,
Interesting.
um, one of the programs is the John Wick program,
Oh yeah,
which
I've heard this. I've heard this.
so it trained him how to use guns, how to do judo. It was like a tutorial which taught him how to be Neo. And then when he finally finishes downloading, like he's lived the whole John Wick program, and that is what made him Neo.
Interesting. He kind of comes back.
Hmm.
No, I like that. I mean, I could see some of the common threads. Lawrence Fishburne being in both.
Yes.
Kind of also. leading a secret underground resistance to a shadowy overhead pseudo government,
Hmm.
quasi government conspiracy, and yeah, where his origins are kind of unconfirmed, but he's seemingly unkillable, all powerful. Yeah, I love it.
Yep.
Um, yeah, I think that's a good one.
Hmm. Good
Yes,
talk.
yeah, trilogies, man. Now to get into Star Wars and the Mandalorian,
Yes.
man.
So,
Yeah, let's get
Adam,
into
I'm
it.
going to come out with
Uh oh.
this huge confession,
Uh oh.
and that is,
Uh oh.
you know, the Mandalorian um, is something that I am struggling to care about as much as people who absolutely love it.
Mm.
There was a time, season one, where I'm like, I am set for the ride. Star Wars spaghetti western, gunfights, a cute baby. It's all there. I love it. And then the other seasons came out, and I'm like, you know, it was just a summer romance. It was a fling. You know, I don't think I love it as much, but other people are like, this is genius. I love this. This is wonderful.
Mm. No,
So,
I do not blame you. Yeah, I think a lot of people have shared a similar sentiment this season, and I think I have a theory about that, but I want to say I enjoyed the season. I think in part because I watched it all at once. Um,
mhm.
and instead of episodically, and I think that's fundamentally the problem I think Disney and Star Wars are facing right now, is because they're allegedly trying to release stuff episodically, but the way that they're writing and creating their seasons, it's not episodic. And I think that's why the first season was so good, was because they released it episodically and they wrote it episodically, and it felt like an episodic story, like a storyline, right? Like each
Right.
episode was different. It was like, okay, like we're gonna go see, what Space Dad and Baby Frog are up to this week, and it was just awesome because one, it felt like there were no strings attached, right? Like
Right.
you didn't need to watch four different TV shows with eight seasons each of the Clone Wars and Rebels, and
You're
you
right.
didn't need to watch the prequel trilogy. You didn't need to know who Dave Filoni is.
Yeah.
um you could just enjoy this space cowboy and his little son, and
Right.
um it was so great. And yeah, and there was of course a season long story that was being told, but it kind of, that story kind of took a backseat until the finale to just the fun little adventures that they were on, as bounty
Hmm.
hunters. And I think season two kind of stuck to the a similar vibe. I think it did step up the storyline as a whole. Um, like it was more intentional with a storyline. It wasn't as episodic.
Hmm.
Um, but I think that's kind of where they lost the plot in the
Yeah.
third season.
Where it lost me in the second one is,
Mm,
I think in the second one they're like, oh man, we got to do more throwbacks. We're
right.
losing our loyal fan base. We're gonna throw in a Luke Skywalker. That very pretty Jedi girl with the horns kind of
Ahsoka.
hair. Yeah, we need a couple of her in there. We
Yeah.
gotta throw in this guy and this guy, drop a few hints here. And oh, we gotta throw in the original Boba Fett. You gotta
Right.
make him a big deal. And that's where it's kind of, for me, that's where it's like, okay, this is not my me enjoying a universe with everyone. This is me kind of coming late to the party and asking, why is this important? Why is this important?
Right.
And so, it kind of lost me on season 2. And then, season 3, I'm trying to restore my faith.
Right. Right. And at least for me, I liked season 2 and season 3, but for a
Hmm.
different reason than I liked season 1. I liked season 2 and season 3 because I spent time watching Rebels and I spent time watching Clone Wars, and I was like, "Oh, I know that when they name drop Thrawn in season 3, I'm like, "Oh, that's a big deal," because I know that in Rebels, he was like the main villain, and I know that he disappeared at the season, the show finale with Ezra Bridgers, and I know that they're both gone, and if that means if Thrawn is back, that means Ezra is back, and he's a Jedi, and he could probably train Grogu, but I also know that they were also referencing him possibly coming back because they showed these space whales that I'm sure confused people who had no idea what was going on. Why there are these space whales flying through hyperspace
Right.
with Space Dad? And if you hadn't seen the season finale of Rebels, you'd be like, why are there whales in space? And I get it. I get it. I totally understand. Or
Hmm.
um or like it definitely felt like in the third season also that Mando kind of definitely took a back seat to a lot of the other characters, where he
Right.
wasn't the main character anymore.
They're calling it
Eh,
the Bo Katan series
right.
in
And
season
I
3.
mean I mean don't get me wrong, love Bo-Katan. I thought her character was great, but the season 3 of The Mandalorian, it didn't really, it really felt like a an 8 episode arc of like Dave Filoni setting up the Ahsoka show, setting up, future shows, as opposed to we're just doing the Mandalorian.
Right. How people feel getting baited like that.
Mm,
Like when I found out, so IGN
yeah,
says that the second season felt like the completion of the Mandalorian. He gives the
yeah,
baby to Luke Skywalker. He finished his mission. He beat the bad guy. The end. Credits. We don't need to see anything. And then the Mandalorian did this funny thing where you have to watch the Boba Fett series to enjoy the cliffhanger that was season 2 of Mandalorian.
right,
So you have homework. And then, I didn't know about this homework. So going into season 3, I'm like, okay, it's going to be a season without the baby. Oh, that's a very creative and interesting. And then I see the baby there, and he's like, everyone's acting like nothing really happened.
right,
And I felt so cheated. I felt like this, like, what's the point in, feeling that tension when I hate when they do that in comic books. They're like, to finish this story of Superman, you got to read Teen Titans, and it's like, no, I don't want to read Teen Titans. I want to read Superman. So, I just, to me that felt like a low blow. I know we talk about like the unnecessary homework to enjoy something, and I was just a little disappointed that Mandalorian is within that. That's big homework. 9 episodes of the Boba Fett book.
sure, yeah,
What if
no,
I don't like Boba Fett? Then I lose out.
right,
I know,
right,
like to Disney, they don't. They the idea that a Star Wars fan could hate anything that comes out of Disney is a blasphemy in and of itself. But it's there. We don't love everything that's.
right. Let's come out
Yeah.
for sure, and yeah, and I think it's the how what I was saying at the beginning, the problem I think that Disney is facing with the shows, and not only just with the Mandalorian, but with their Marvel shows, and why I think, I don't know if you saw, but they're for the new upcoming Marvel series, not Mute, I forgot what it's called. Speak? I can't remember. But it's about that mute hero, or the mute character from Hawkeye. I don't know if you saw Hawkeye.
No.
But there's a character, she's like a bad guy, but she's mute,
Mm-hmm.
and so they're giving her a spin-off show, but that's going to be the first show that Disney has released all at once as opposed to
Right.
episodically. So I'm curious to see if Disney has also done the math like I have, and just like, this episodic thing isn't really working. Um,
Right.
and it's kind of put two and two together. But I don't want to be a Debbie Downer on
No.
the Mandalorian the whole time. I mean, I do want to talk about things that I really did enjoy. I do think that in if anything is going to get you to finish out the season, the last three episodes are just a feast for the eyes. Truly, like the
Mhm.
action and the CGI and the action sequences are truly second to none. I mean, there's a sequence where a bunch of Mandalorians are jetpacking into a giant cave to fight other jetpack clad troopers, and there's just a big aerial battle, and you're like, how? What? This is insane. This is everything. The visual of the excitement of like what makes Star Wars so awesome was fully on display there, right? Like you love Star Wars because of the giant ship battles, right? Or
Yeah.
the clones running into battle against the droids, or the big flashing lights, and there's a ton of that in the last like three episodes. And you're just like, why didn't you give us this, through the whole thing? And um yeah, I think it's also telling um what shows what Star Wars shows have had success and what Star Wars shows haven't had success. And I'm speaking of shows like Andor, and the first season of Boba Fett, the first season of The Mandalorian, maybe the second season too, as opposed to how people have received the Book of Boba Fett and the third season of The Mandalorian
Mm-hmm.
and some other stuff where I I think the difference is that with Andor, like they of course they release those episodically, but they wrote the whole show as a whole show, and then they picked points to break up. Whereas
Yeah.
opposed to The Mandalorian, it felt like they they individually wrote 8 episodes and then tried to find a way to make all 8 episodes fit together, and
Right.
it just kind of feels like a disjointed kind of puzzle that sort of makes sense together, but if
Mm-hmm.
you're not on top of it, you can like lose track pretty easily.
Right. And that's what happens when you get a new writer every episode.
Right, or a new director.
Yeah.
Um I think some directors did better than others. Like I think Bryce Dallas Howard did an awesome job. I think that the episodes that of course uh not Dave Filoni, um what's his name? Uh Don Favreau directed and wrote,
Mm-hmm.
were of course really great. But yeah, I think some people just kind of grasp the material better than others.
Absolutely. Now, apparently, this all is trying to feed into the new trilogy.
Mm,
Like it's trying to open up to what would later become like the new Republic and the bad guys and Kylo Ren and all that stuff.
right, right.
Would you say that's like it's working? Like, does it all fit together for you, or would you say
Um,
it's
yeah, I
just
mean,
more
yeah,
garbage?
I mean, they're definitely trying to make connections to the new trilogy to try to save it with people. I mean, they name drop characters from the new trilogy. One of the characters you meet later on, his name is Hux. He's apparently
Mm-hmm.
like the older brother or the dad of Hux from the trilogy. Um, they also you find out that Moff Gideon is like cloning himself, and he found a way
Mm-hmm.
using Grogu's blood and DNA to give himself force sensitive powers to his clones. So that is, of course, paving the way to like things like Operation Cinder, which is, of course, the cloning program for what will become Darth Sidious and all those clones and stuff that we meet later on in the new trilogy. So they're trying, um, and I think the problem is, um, I think the fans that have been around since the original trilogy or kind of
Mm-hmm.
got grandfathered in with the prequels are just have it just feels like there's not a whole lot of general goodwill towards the new trilogy. And I don't know. I think that they run the risk of alienating the fan base a little bit more if they continue to try to push the agenda. But if there's anyone that can fix the new trilogy, it's Dave Filoni because he fixed the prequel trilogies. Because back in the day, it used to be people almost didn't like the prequel trilogies as much as they dislike the new trilogy now. But because of Clone Wars and the work that Dave Filoni put in, people kind
Mm-hmm.
of look back on those things more fondly now. So if anyone's gonna save it, it's him.
Yeah. That was the thing that I did not understand. So Moff
Mm,
Gideon, big bad guy,
right.
he was the heart of season 2. Like his whole thing was I need Grogu.
Yeah.
And it led to the standoff at the end, and
So
then
good.
he had the child,
Right.
and he almost had him at gunpoint, and then all of a sudden he's like, fine, take him, and I'm like,
Right.
really, he just gives up the child, and I'm like, and like he kind of becomes pointless near the
Right.
finale for the second one, and I'm like, I was supposed to be invested in this battle between good and evil, and then they kind of just dropped it, and I'm like,
Right.
why go through this huge battle to steal the baby and then just kind of give up at the last second?
Right. And they kind of do the same thing in season 3 with the dark saber.
Mm-hmm.
They spend so much time, hyping up Din Djarin with a dark saber. Well, does Bo-Katan have the right to rule Mandalore without it or with it? Can Din give her the dark saber? All this kind of stuff. And then, spoilers towards the end, and I'm sorry, Mike, you didn't get to the end, but in the last episode, they just break the dark saber. It's just broken. It doesn't matter. It gets crushed and then blown up. Like it's just gone. And they don't even spend a second thought on it. So it's like, what was the point of this? You
Yeah,
spent all this time building this up, and you just throw it away.
so yeah, like the Mandalorian has like these items of priceless worth, whether
Right.
it's like Gragu's purpose or the dark saber, and then
Mm.
like I feel like the writers get so nervous, like there's too much pressure on this, too much pressure, just kill it.
Let's get rid of it.
Just
Yeah.
drop it.
Yeah. Right. And you know, I you know, I totally agree, and I really do. It does seem like when they get into a fourth season that they're gonna make it more episodic. It seems that way. They kind of tie up a lot of ends with Bo-Katan, and it kind of sets up. They give Grogu and Din, a nice base of operations to work from, and they set it up at the end like he's gonna be a bounty hunter for the New Republic, and he's gonna help in that way. So hopefully the coming season will be a little bit more episodic, but yeah, I think that as long as they keep the writing and directing cast together, and they keep the awesome cast of characters and actors that they have together, it's still gonna be very, very must see TV.
Mm-hmm.
But just because they have that, um, doesn't mean that they shouldn't be careful. Because I think if they have too many seasons, like season 3, I think they might
Yeah.
lose some goodwill.
So that's great. Everyone's getting all the hype, and they're getting the connections. I got stuck on the
Mm.
selling point of this. And I
Mm.
thought, it was cool in the first season. You have this tough Clint Eastwood type bounty hunter, the
Right.
Jason Bourne of space, right?
Right. Right.
And, he finds this cute, adorable CGI puppet, you know, uh, kind of like a less mischievous baby Groot, but with psychic powers.
A
It's,
space inborn, if you will.
yes. And, that it was like peanut butter and jelly. It
Yeah.
worked. When it went
Right.
together. And I went into that season 3 with that same expectation.
Sure.
But then Grogu felt more like an adorable Fraggle in season 3, and so much to the fact that I had to tell my brain, okay, this is not Jim Henson's Muppet Babies. Okay,
Right. Right.
I know your brain keeps telling you it is because you see this cute little thing doing acrobatic circles in the air and going goo goo gaga right next to this guy who shoots people for a living. But
Right.
I had to constantly say, you have to take this serious, Mike. This is a serious Star Wars. And then you'd see the baby jump and go, la, la. And, and then there's that scene where he has to climb into this tiny hole to talk to this cute mouse that has this weird dialect that's cuter than any Yoda. And
And
I'm
he
like,
tries to eat
okay,
him.
yeah. And it's just like, all right, there's just no way my brain cannot take this seriously.
Yeah.
I don't know how you Star Wars fans do it. How do you do that? I tried to think of well, what if I made a Terminator,
Yeah.
but then I had a baby Beaker who goes meep 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 and
Right.
follow that Terminator around. How
Yeah.
serious would you take it?
Right. No, it's totally valid. And I think that fundamentally that's the struggle of being a Star Wars fan is
Mm-hmm.
that inherently Star Wars was created for kids, right? Like
Yeah.
it was designed for kids age, 8 to 15. And the
Mm-hmm.
problem is those kids that it was made for from 8 to 15 grew up to be 35-year-olds. And
Yes.
they want 35-year-old stories. They want the morally ambiguous, bounty hunter. They want, the sex, drugs, and rock and roll, right? But Star Wars
Mm-hmm.
is never gonna be that.
Right.
And I think that it's disingenuous to want to expect that from Star Wars because it's never going to it's not going to be that. I think you can tell really serious, really mature stories like
Mm-hmm.
Andor or Rogue One and um,
Right.
stuff like that, but that's never going to be the norm. And I think that people are going to be disappointed. Um, if that's the only expectation. So I think conversely, if you go into it being like, I understand that this is designed for kids, and I want to enjoy it as I want to tap into that you know joyfulness, that kid joyfulness.
Mm-hmm.
Um, then I think you're gonna have a completely different mindset. And I think that there's a good balance of that. And I think in the third season, of The Mandalorian, I think there's a couple of spots where I really loved when Din Djarin gets captured, when they go back to Mandalore and Grogu
Mm-hmm.
has to go back and save his dad, and he has to make his way back to the ship and fly it back, and then find Bo-Katan. And I feel like I was like, oh yeah, the character has grown since season one. He's more mature. He's more independent. So I think that was
Mm-hmm.
really great. And then it also gets really bad when he's just not in an entire episode, when he's just hanging out with Lizzo and Jack Black, and the episode is just Din Djarin and Bo-Katan being procedural cops on Law and Order. Um,
Yeah.
and it's just okay, Grogu's supposed to be in this. He's the main character. Um, but I think it's kind of redeemed at the very, very end. There's a sequence where, Din Djarin is fighting a group of Imperial guards, and he does it with the help of Grogu, and they work together, and it kind of shows how Grogu is, grown to the point where he's not just the damsel in distress, right? He's fully capable of being a warrior just like his dad, and they work together, and it's oh, it's this awesome completion of this arc of Grogu's maturity. So I think that there's awesome story beats that are really great, but
Hmm.
just as many moments of those there are Grogu just trying to eat a little small monster that's trying to help him. Like
Right.
or him getting in. I don't know if you saw this part, but they resurrect IG-11 and
Hmm.
Grogu gets to be inside of it,
Yeah.
and they give him a button that just says yes or no, and he just presses yes and no for all its comedic worth over like 2 episodes. You're just like, it was funny, haha, the first time, and now it's haha sad. Like
Yeah.
it's like it's not as funny, but they ride that joke for all it's worth. But
Yeah.
yeah, so I think for every high there's an equal low. So I don't know. I
Like,
I, I I'm hopeful.
yeah. I mean, I get it. I get that, like, Disney created something that is one part like pure Star Wars lore. Like, this is the old country buffet of Star Wars storytelling.
Right.
And on the other hand is like the little something for the girlfriend, the cute baby, you
Right.
know, the
Something to sell toys.
population that makes those minion memes about are the ones that are really into the Grago thing. And so we won those guys over too, but we also have the cool Jason Bourne Star Wars lore guy and, like,
Right.
peanut butter and jelly. Can we make it
Right.
work? Sometimes.
Sometimes. Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I think when Star Wars it's at its absolute best is when it's exploring and expanding its own universe. And I think when Star Wars is at its worst is when it's like held on its noose of its own like legacy, if that makes sense.
Right.
Like, like I'm okay with the idea of maybe of a jaded Luke Skywalker that kind of has realized that him giving his entire life to the Jedi wasn't all it's cracked up to be, but then to have him totally just like disregard his lightsaber, or for him to like completely disregard all of his character growth and have
Yeah.
like and to have like the redemption that he did. It's just like, oh, this isn't what I really signed up for. Like I think it's at that point it's like it's held its legacy. It's held at gunpoint. But then where it just kind of explores and expands its universe. Like I love Solo. Like I think it's so great because you get to see the side of Star Wars that you don't normally get to see, and it's just such a big, huge, wonderful universe. And when you're able to explore it and other characters, I think is when Star Wars is at its best. And
Hmm.
yeah, and I just hope that Din Djarin's story doesn't get that legacy choking treatment, and instead he gets to be a lens for us to kind of explore the galaxy.
Hmm. Yeah. Um, there's like probably a 6 hour conversation I could have
Mm.
with you
Mm.
over one particular like novel series
Yeah,
that dared to take the original trilogy and put it into like a brand new bad guys, brand new rules, brand new risks, and it's the Prime Vector series. And I dare not open that can of worms, but I've been interested in getting into that. And, a lot of diehard Star Wars fans who grew up with those novels, they wanted more because, let's face it, Star Wars ended in the 90s and all that we had were the novels.
right.
And so those people were saying, "Oh, you're resurrecting Star Wars? Oh, so you're going to go with the novels, right?" And then no.
Huh.
So I'm actually curious to know about if those novels were ever going to make a comeback.
Right. And I mean, I would say probably not, just because right around the merger, when Star Wars acquired Lucasfilms, they kind of did away with all that. They kind of did away with all the books and saying that they're not canon. But also at the same time, Dave Filoni and has been saying and bringing a lot of stuff that wasn't canon back, kicking and screaming into canon, like Thrawn, like Revan, And I never say never, but who knows?
So we're never going to get the new Jedi Order series, which kills off Chewbacca and invents this alien race that like hates like technology and uses like these unconventional ways to be like terrorists.
Yeah, I know it's there's so much cool stuff that happens in the Dark Horse comics too, and
Right.
like one of my favorite Star Wars characters of all time is Mara Jade, and I keep holding out hope that maybe we'll get her someday, and so far I'm been very disappointed, but um yeah, I it's sad.
Pouring one out.
Pour one out.
Yeah.
But overall, I mean, I guess closing thoughts. Um, yeah, I personally I liked season 3 of The Mandalorian. I do think it was the weaker of the 3 seasons. And it definitely felt like it felt like a season 2.5 instead of a season 3.
Right.
Um, but I still enjoyed it. I still think it's among the best that's on the television right now in
Right.
terms of like new stuff. And as
Mm-hmm.
for better or for worse, I'm a Star Wars sucker. I'm a Star Wars shill, and whatever comes out, I'm gonna go see it. And yeah, and I don't know if that is a ringing
Mm-hmm.
endorsement or not, but yeah, like I enjoyed it at least, and I do hope that you give it a second go at it, Mike. I definitely think the second half of the season is stronger than the first half,
Mm-hmm.
and if only for the last 3 episodes, if you just check those 3 out, I wouldn't blame you.
Well, yeah. I I have to give credit where credit is due. The idea of the suffering hero trying to find redemption through the baptism waters of Mandalore seemed like a really cool idea. Like it's got depth. It's definitely not a children's story, and so
Right.
I like that. They could have gone a lot of places with that.
Right.
Um, I think by episode 3, they're like, "All right, stop mourning, stop being sad, get to the action.
Right.
You're officially a bounty hunter again." You know.
Mm. Yeah, for
But
sure. I wish that they took a little bit more time. I know it was an 8 episode season, but even if it was like 10 or 12 and they just spent a little bit more time, with him exploring Mandalore a little bit, or him struggling with Bo-Katan, or like trying to get the Mandalorians back on their side. If they just spent a
yeah,
little bit more time developing that, I think that would have been really cool. But 8 episodes felt too short.
yeah, it could have been 8 episodes of him just trying to earn the love of the Mandalorian Guild, and like having to go through like the 8 labors of Hercules for them, and maybe he finds out that it's not worth it. Like these people are not worth pleasing. Maybe they cancel, like they call him out. They say you can't own a baby and be part of the Mandalorian, and he has to choose. That kind of stuff goes deep.
Right, for sure, for sure. And yeah, no, I totally agree. But for those of you, hopefully we haven't spoiled anything. If you haven't seen it yet, what are you doing? Go watch it.
I know.
Um, but yeah, no, I do want to say that a lot of times, I know it seems like we're pretty critical of stuff that people love um, on this podcast, but I like to think that I'm so critical because I love it so much. Like I love Marvel, I love Star Wars, I love seeing those things. I love DC. I want DC to succeed too.
Hmm.
And I think because I love it so much, I want it to be the best that it can be. And um, yeah, so I just hope that Star Wars keeps
Hmm.
pumping out stuff. And
Yeah.
honestly, sometimes maybe this is an unpopular opinion, but you know, bad Star Wars is better than no Star Wars.
Right. I'm kind of like the husband whose wife is into some reality TV show, and it's like I can never join this conversation with you, but I'm happy that it makes you happy.
For
And
sure.
Star Wars always makes people happy. Like, and I'll never get why, but I'm so happy for you because there's so few fandoms in this world that hit the spot.
Mm, for sure, for sure. And I think Star Wars is always going to get the critique of like um it has the potential to have such a to be able to explore deeper, more mature, more sensitive topics, or to have like a more serious tone. And I think the default for Star Wars is always going back to um childlike things, and I think that's always going to be the critique. And I can understand why someone might not necessarily want that or desire that
Mm-hmm.
always. And so I'll never blame someone that doesn't necessarily
Right.
always like it as much as I do. But um yeah, I think that's part of its charm.
I mean, we are talking about a late 70s comic book that
Right,
was
exactly.
raised up by Jim Henson. I mean,
Right.
that was the graphics budget, was Jim Henson and puppets.
Right.
I That's what made it special. And if you don't like it for that, then you probably don't like Star Wars. You probably should be watching, I don't know, Halo.
Yeah, right. Right. Or 2001 A Space Odyssey.
Right, right. You should be watching those. If you're not into puppets, get away from Star Wars.
Yeah, go watch Starship Troopers or
Yeah.
Babylon AD.
I
Um
mean, Yoda was voiced by Miss Piggy.
Oh my gosh.
Thank
That's
God memes weren't invented back then.
right, right. Oh my goodness. Sounds
Yeah.
so good. But Mike, man, what a great podcast.
Hmm.
We miss our we miss our other co-hosts, and we
Right. Why are we
um
spending this late to talk about him? There's this other guy that usually talks, and uh, he has some very great insights about movies, and I hope he makes it this long in the episode to know that we actually mentioned him.
yeah, maybe we'll cut this part out and put it at the beginning, and
Uh,
we'll put a disclaimer. But um yeah, I mean, should we? I don't know. It feels kind of late now, but I don't know. Should we?
Eston, we're so sorry.
Yeah,
We're so sorry. We know you can't make it. We miss you.
yeah.
Um, yeah, never think that we're replacing you.
Never.
You're
You're irreplaceable.
you have reasons for not being here,
Yeah,
and one day you will reveal them to the world.
right. You'll be like a 50-year-old Jedi youngling that survived Order 66, and you'll come back in all your glory with a nice face papa, and
Mhm.
you'll save us from all of this.
You'll be a
And
season 5 callback that makes all the fans go, "Oh no, he didn't."
oh, I remember that guy. He's so cool.
Yes, yes, that is what you're gonna be. So please pretend we said this at the beginning.
Oh, you didn't have the Eston action figure from Burger King from 1998. You're not a true fan.
Oh my gosh, I read the whole Eston novel series. It makes Star Wars so much better.
It just gives it a certain gravitas.
Yeah, right.
Oh man. Yeah, well, we miss you, buddy, and
Hmm.
I the in the interim we'll miss you for sure, and yeah, the door's always open, buddy.
Doors always open. Yeah, literally just say, "I want to be in this episode," and you're there.
You're in.
Yes.
Um, but yeah, but besides that, any closing
Well,
thoughts before we sign off?
June is our Star Wars month,
Yes.
and we're talking about Star Wars, but I think we covered everything, so there might not be anything left to talk about the series that's been around for 50 years.
Yeah, no.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm okay if we wanna move on to something else. I mean, we'll talk about it off screen maybe, but yeah, we'll figure something out.
We'll see. We'll noodle around, and we might just talk about the Andromeda series starring her.
Yeah, right. I mean,
Yeah.
I'd love to do a vintage throwback. I know I talked about Indiana Jones at the beginning of the series, but I am seeing a re-screening of it tomorrow. So I mean, I'm all for a 90s throwback and we want to talk about George of the Jungle or something, we can make that happen.
Right. It's the summer of George. So,
Yeah.
All right. Anyways, thank you for joining us. Go to our Retrologic Discord and be part of the conversation. And we're just so happy that you guys are the reasons that we're talking into microphones. So
Absolutely. Yeah, we
I've been
love
Mike.
you guys. I'm Adam.
All right, and have a great day.
Goodbye, mwah, or night.
Good morning.
I'm not bad. I'm just drawn that way.
Houston, we have a problem.
But why make models?
Are you not entertained?
Why so serious?
It's alive, it's alive.
The snozberries